This is Brian Cochran with briancochran.org and gww1.com. I want to talk to you for a couple of minutes about nonprofits and the challenges nonprofits have, especially when they're just beginning. And I set up nonprofits. I've been doing that now probably right around 20 years or so, and it never fails that when I find out, when we talk about the reason for starting a nonprofit, they'll say, "Oh yeah, I want to help my community," and da 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 da, and they'll come up with these ideas. And there's others that think that they're going to start with the first thing that I hear, and I have to correct them. And I want to set this straight now. This, if you're thinking about before you start a nonprofit, you got to understand what the difference is between a nonprofit and for-profit, and then the challenges of how that operates and how it works, and some of the challenges I've seen with working with churches and other nonprofits, and the challenges that they've had and have. I need to kind of address some things so that way we do things right, and we understand the whole process, and not get we stay in corporate compliance for our nonprofit, as well as by God, because there's a render unto Caesar what is due Caesar, and unto God what is due God. And the thing about it is that we have to understand that if we plan on doing a nonprofit, there's a misunderstanding and a misnomer, and I want to kind of clear that up today. So one of the things I realized is when I was setting up, when you're setting up a nonprofit, the first thing you need to realize when you are setting up a nonprofit, that it is what it says, not for profit, that the corporation, as well as your 501c3 or whatever other nonprofit that you may set up, that it actually belongs to the state that you are in. First and foremost, I'm here in California, so the state of California, technically, it's a public benefit corporation, so that means that you are in the business of providing social service programs into the community that you're going to serve. If that's statewide, countywide, citywide, nationwide, doesn't matter. It's still the same thing, and so that means that if there is a profit, that the nonprofit doesn't belong to you, it belongs to the public, because nine times out of 10, the majority of people, you're going to be getting it for donations. And so since you're getting it for donations, then it's not because you are all that in a bag of chips that the money comes to you and you think it belongs to you. It doesn't. It belongs again to the people and to the state that technically belongs to them. You are just a caregiver. That's a manager managing the finances that are coming in to provide the service in your local community. I found more than not that folks think that that's their personal nest egg, that they can take that money and it belongs to them, and whatever assets that are accumulated through the times that the nonprofit has been in business, that when they decide their exit strategy is, I'm going to sell off all the assets, I'm going to go live in the Bahamas, or I'm going to buy a big house and whatever, or get the money that I put into it because I put all this hard work into it, it belongs to me. Well, guess what? It's a social service, so if it's a religious organization, it's still the same thing. You're providing spiritual life development to the community that you serve. So even if you're the pastor and you sowed into it to get it started, well, that's because you see the cause. And two things: one, you're doing it unto the state for who you got the corporation from, as well as the IRS, who's federal. And then, and two, you're doing it unto God. So it's not you're not going into this and say, well, my extra strategy is I'm going to build it up, and I can always pull the assets out for me to be able to live for the rest of my life. Well, you got into it because you see that the people need help, and then it's going to take the people that's going to help you build your nonprofit. There's the people that are going to help you to build your vision or the mission that you have for your nonprofit. So when you first go in, don't think of it if you're starting a church or starting a ministry or starting some type of CBO, CDC, and we'll get into what those are another time. But make sure when you're getting those things started that you understand that either you may have to have a side job, full-time job to support the nonprofit, and understand that the money that you sow in there is not a bank account. It's not it's not where you sow into it that you're going to get it back. No, you're sowing into it because you believe in the cause of whatever it is that you're doing. So that's number one. Number two, start looking for a board. I can't tell you how many churches and other nonprofits, and this is one of my it just drives me crazy, and I get it, because when you first start, you don't necessarily have a board, and you think the board's going to control you because you look at other organizations, especially in the faith-based community, where the board runs the church, which is I'm going to say this up front, not biblical. I understand why they're doing it, but technically the pastor, the shepherd of the house, is the head of the ministry because it gets a divine word from heaven, and in heaven he gives instructions that write the vision, make it plain. So the board helps to implement whatever the cause is or whatever the programs are that you're going to be doing in that local church. So I can understand why you would be afraid to put yourself out there and building a board, but it's one of those where there's a multitude of counsel of having people that have more expertise in different areas that have the same motivation, believe in your cause, wants to be a part of your tribe, wants to be a part of your community, and say, look, we can do this thing together. We're stronger together. We can do this together. So I'm going to be on your board because I have a skill set and an expertise that I bring to the table that will help build a solid foundation for your nonprofit, as well as be able to help you as the executive director, CEO, or president, or whatever you want to call yourself, to take it into the marketplace or take it into the world or take it into the community that you're going to serve, and they're going to help you to do that because you can't do it by yourself. No man is an island. And it also, the other part of that is that it also will help you stay accountable. I've seen so many times that because they don't have a board, and then once they get accustomed to not having anybody to answer to, they get comfortable. So it's easy for you to get deterred, and it's easier for you to go astray because there's no real accountability. So having a good, strong board that are not yes people is going to be key to your success in your nonprofit, because because this is what I do and this is my passion and my love in wanting to help us serve our community, that you'll be better off in the short run, that when you get started, it may be just you and your husband or you and your spouse, whichever the case may be. Then start looking for people in the community. What's the cool thing about today that's different than yesterday is that we have something called the internet. And we have something called social media, and Facebook is probably the largest one. So what you start doing now is putting out feelers on Facebook and saying, hey, I got this nonprofit I'm doing. If you care about this, and this, and start talking about it, and start casting your vision through Facebook and saying, look, I'm passionate about, saving dogs, we just use as a for instance. And we want to start some type of recovery system where instead of them going into the system where they get, if they don't get adopted in a certain length of time, they'll be killed. Then you take them on and say, look, we'll help place dogs, we'll help make them into service dogs or help them into being adopted or whatever the case may be. There's other dog lovers out there like you that maybe be a great fundraiser, for instance, that will be on your board. They don't want to run it, they don't have time to run it, but what they can do is volunteer their time to make sure the articles are, that your bylaws are correct, to make sure that the vision that you've divinely gotten for your nonprofit, that you'll be able to do and do it well, because they have that skill set to say, okay, well, you need this X amount of dollars. Well, I know how to write letters to certain agencies or partner with certain agencies that they have the funding source. We actually have the runners on the ground. Or you may have the money and you need foot soldiers to do it, and they have the foot soldiers, so you can network together to be able to do it, and that's their expertise. We have another person that has organizational management or organizational leadership management profession, so they can come in and help you structure and organize and help you get it to the next level, because you have a passion. You're understanding what you want to do, but may not know how to walk it out. And it's funny because this is number 3. One of the things I really want to say, just because you're the visionary doesn't mean you're going to carry out the vision. If you look at, half of the larger nonprofits, the person that founded the nonprofit may be the chairman of the board, but it may not be the CEO or the executive director that's carrying out, or the COO that's carrying out the actual part. So you may be willing. So what you may have to do is bring somebody in and be willing, because if it's about your pride, if it's about your ego, then you may not want to go into either for-profit business or nonprofit business, because it works both ways. Because basically there's a business side to it. The nonprofit is not for-profit, and the for-profit is for-profit, so that's the only difference. But the basics in the middle of how you operate the business, how they operate the board, how they operate and do the actual things that's going to take for it to do it is actually called business. So be willing to find people that will. I know that I was talking to a client the other day, and that's why I'm kind of on this today. And I said, let me start talking about nonprofit development and that kind of stuff as well, because I do deal with nonprofit. Maybe you do or don't know, but I've been doing it for, as I said earlier, about 20 years now. And so I was talking to a client just recently, and the client was saying how, they didn't know how to get it to the next level. They've gone as far as they can go. and then somebody came in that had the expertise to help them get to the next level, and they wouldn't step down and allow the person to take over, to run it, to take it to the next level. The ultimate thing is that when you're dealing with a nonprofit and even for-profit, if you're a for-profit and you have shareholders, then your obligation is to make a profit by law. That you're supposed to make a profit and give dividends back and give your money back is their investment into their company. With a nonprofit, it's different because there is no profit. The profit goes into there is no profit. Everything goes back into the social service. You're able to get salaries. You're able to pay commissions and all that kind of stuff, depending on what your nonprofit is. But this person came in with 30 years of experience, that had the same passions, had the same understanding, had worked with several other nonprofits before in that same arena, that could have helped that organization grow and go to leaps and bounds instead of struggling and trying to do it. This person was able to come in. You couldn't pay them a big salary, so they weren't even looking for the salary. They believed in the cause, but yet because of their ego, they wouldn't get out of the way and just be the chairman of the board, but yet allow another person be the CEO. Because again, it doesn't belong to you. It is owned by the people because it is a public benefit corporation, and the nonprofit status that you got was for the IRS stating that you will not do this for profit, that you're providing a service in the local community or national community or global community, depending on how you set your organization up and what the vision is and the mission is and what you're actually doing in order to provide services in the city. So those are three things I kind of want to talk about just briefly. Is one, get out of your own way. Just know that it doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the people that you're servicing in your community. That's what it's all about, that you're getting these donations in to help you provide the service. So this is a feeding program that you're able to buy food or get food, and then your staff, your team, your people are going to provide the food in the community. If it's a job training program, then you're going to hire staffing that are going to come in and help train, or you do it yourself based upon your expertise and the vision that you have for your company, that you provide that service in the community to help them become employable. If it's an entrepreneurship program, if it's a domestic violence or shelter or whatever it is, that it all belongs to the nonprofit. Now, the only way to get around that, for instance, it would be that the upside about that is you personally purchase property that's in your personal name, and then you lease, for instance, the property back to the organization. That would be the only way that you could actually sell the assets, because technically the assets belong to you personally, it doesn't belong to the organization. So you can't sell sell the assets in the corporation, it goes to you. Technically what happens is when you dissolve a nonprofit, then all the assets, either you donate it to somebody else and give it to somebody else, or you relinquish those funds back to the state that you're in. So that's what we're talking about today. Make sure that you understand that when you're going in for not-for-profit, so what you can do too, I just thought about this. Well, I've actually not just thought about it, but but there's this other part that you can do as well, is what we teach in helping people start a for-profit business, is that when it comes time you start making a profit, that you can set up a nonprofit that the for-profit funds the nonprofit to be able to provide the services in the local community. So there's tax write-offs for that and all these other wonderful benefits for doing that, but it's still, the assets still don't belong to you. I'll keep saying that over and over again as we go through all this teaching when we talk about nonprofit development. So understand that it doesn't belong to you. Understand that it belongs to the state. It belongs to the people that you're serving, and that if you decide to go out, all the assets you liquidate doesn't go in your pocket. It goes back. So I got to pay myself back because I invested all this money and time. Well, again, when you signed, if you look at the application and what it says in your articles of incorporation, it says that it explains it to you in plain black and white, and you agreed and you wrote at the bottom, you signed at the bottom stating that I understand the rules and regulations of me being able to be accepted as a nonprofit organization, first by the state, and then the same thing happens when you do your 1023 form, that throughout the form they're asking the who, what, why, where, and how, who your partners are, who you're leveraged with, and then down at the bottom it'll say, by the way, just so you know, that the assets belong to the people and this local state that you're part of. So that's my talking for the day. I hope something's been said for you to understand that how wonderful it is that you want to provide a service in your local community. But there's also some understanding of what that truly is, so that way you have a better opportunity for success. This is Brian Cochran, and we'll see you in the next video.